Shalom. So what's the deal with positive thinking? I mean, how important is that? Some people think that if you have a good energy, if you think good thoughts, that will have an effect on the outcome of events, that will have an effect on your life. So how important really is it that we have positive thoughts? There's a lot of people who believe in this, and there's a lot of detractors as well. And people have been talking about this issue for years. And in 2006 or so, there was a book that was written, a self-help and spirituality book called The Secret. It was later made into a movie. And the main premise of this book was that an individual's focused positive thinking can result in life-changing results. And this book achieved high sales after being featured on Oprah. And there were a lot of detractors from this as well, a lot of criticism, people who felt that positive thinking books have the problem of avoiding dealing with real sources behind problems, and that it would encourage a flight from realism when a person is just thinking that they're not trying hard enough or believing enough in their own success, and this type of thing. So this is really a very, very deep question, whether or not we can have an impact on the fiber of our own lives by directing a positive flow of energy onto ourselves. In this week's Torah portion, the parasha of Shoftim, which we always read at the very beginning of this important month of Elul, the month of introspection and preparation, reckoning, spiritual reckoning, month in which we prepare for the coming High Holy Days. In Parashat Shoftim, in chapter 20, we read about Israel going to war. And we read the following: when you go out to the battle against your enemy, and you see horse and chariot, a people more numerous than you shall not fear them, for Hashem your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. It shall be that when you draw near to the war, the Kohen shall approach and speak to the people. He shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you are coming near to the battle against your enemies. Let your heart not be faint. Do not be afraid, do not panic, and do not be broken before them. For Hashem, your God, is the one who goes with you to fight for you with your enemies to save you. And then we have this really interesting thing that happens. The Kohen has to motivate the people. They have to go into this battle. But first he has to kind of have a process of sifting, and he has to remove or cause to be removed from the nation those that are unqualified to fight. So he continues, chapter 20, verse 5 of Parashat Shoftim. He says, Then the officers shall speak to the people, saying, Who is the man who has built a new house and has not yet inaugurated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will inaugurate it. And who is the man who has planted a vineyard and not redeemed it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will redeem it. And who is the man who has betrothed a woman and not married her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will marry her. The officers shall continue speaking to the people and say, Who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, and let him not melt the heart of his fellows like his heart. When the officers have finished speaking to the people, the leaders of the legions shall take command at the head of the people. And we've always known that this is a very beautiful example of the compassion of the Torah, that rather than single out the people that are faint-hearted, that don't have the courage to go out into battle, first, the announcement is made for all of these people who have a very legitimate reason to go home now, because they've just begun an important new stage in their lives, and it would be a terrible shame if they were not able to complete this important chapter, this new important step in their lives, and the Torah recognizes their right to go home. Someone who's built a new house but hasn't yet inaugurated it, someone who's planted a vineyard and hasn't yet gotten to enjoy that, someone who's betrothed a wife and not yet married her. And then the Torah allowed for kind of getting in there without anybody looking, also another category of people, someone who simply is afraid to go into battle, and it may be for a very, very special reason. It may be a manifestation of a very high level of righteousness, that the person is actually in fear of his own sins and feels he doesn't have the merit to fight on behalf of his people. And so he also is told at this point that he could leave, but he can leave under cover. And this is the compassion of the Torah, as we understand it. He can leave under the cover of all of these other people, so no one will know that he's really a person who's actually just faint-hearted. And all of that is the simple interpretation. But the Holy Arizal teaches us something which is very similar to that which we began with. The idea of positive thinking. The idea of the influence that we can have on the events that surround us. And rather than have these events overtake us, we can actually be in a position to see to it that we only receive a positive influence. And this is the teaching, really based on this exact verse, and it's an amazing thing. The idea is that the Jewish people now, going out to fight against their enemies for the sake of the land of Israel, they're in a situation of mortal danger. They're in a situation when their merits, the merits of their righteous deeds, are very, very important, and they have to stand up for them. And it's obviously a time of spiritual reckoning. The people who are anxiety-ridden over their own personal lives, over things that they haven't been able to yet fulfill, and the people that are going to be having a lot of angst over these unfinished chapters of their lives, these people are like magnets for negativity. And this is a very great secret that the Torah is teaching us. It's not just a question of a person being able to be exempt from the war because, he has the right to go home and take care of this personal business because it's just something that he deserves. No. It's that because of the fact that he hasn't attended to this business yet, he is like a wick drawing down a tremendous black cloud of negativity because he is so self-absorbed and so totally focused on his own anxiety, and he's so racked by his own angst that he will bring down not only the morale of his fellow soldiers, but he will also cause their defeat by being such a storm of negativity within their ranks. And this is actually a very deep idea that Torah is sharing with us here, that we can have a very positive effect on everything that we do and everything that transpires around us, everything that we're part of, and everything that we have the ability to affect by the kavanah. And this is why the idea of kavanah and intention is so important for us, by the focus and the direction. And it's funny, we mentioned earlier the whole idea of the criticism that was leveled against that idea. And this is not the forum or the time for me to judge whether or not that particular book, that particular idea has merit as it was presented. I'm talking here about the basis of this kind of thinking in the Torah. One of the criticisms that was leveled against it is that, this is like a flight into fancy, and it's a flight from reality because this person was saying, well, I'm afraid if you focus on this particular method of self-help and spiritual self-improvement, you're not going to be focusing on the source of the problem. Well, exactly. The source of every problem is when a person is not feeling connected to Hashem. And that's exactly what the Torah is teaching us here. That's exactly why these individuals that are being singled out by the Torah here are themselves immersed in such a cloud of negativity. It's because they don't feel that connection. It's because they are so self-absorbed and not seeing the whole and not feeling part of Hashem's plan that they're worried that they're not going to see the fruition of their particular, very idiosyncratic, specific agenda. Because all the problems really come from a disconnection to Hashem. And what we're really being taught here is that when that soldier goes into battle for the sake of Hashem, for the sake of his people, for the sake of his land, and feels that connection and knows that the side of right is with him and knows that Hashem is watching over him, he will bring only positivity and success and valor and blessing to the entire campaign. Whereas if he feels the disconnect and he doesn't feel close to Hashem and he's totally distracted by his own particular pathos, he will bring negativity upon himself, and he will bring destruction and failure upon the entire campaign. Because, and this is such an important lesson that Torah is teaching us here, we can have a very great influence on our own lives and on events, rather than overtaking us, but on being part of the unfolding of our own lives through the realization that Hashem is always with us, and by focusing always on the blessing, on the positive energy, and bringing it down and allowing it to flow through us into each other, just like the soldier with all of his comrades, bringing Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, to a level of blessing and success in all of our endeavors.